I keep it. It's fun. The shit is funny and whatever. But like, you know, of all the people who are in Scientology, it's like any other population of humans. If I pick 100 people off the street, some of us are going to be stupid. But as you can tell, listening to you talk, like, you're not a dumb guy. You're a very, very smart guy. And there's a lot of people like you in Scientology who just from the psychosis of it for that subject matter, Scientology itself, it's like they can hold on sometimes for their whole lives and actually think it's real. And to the outside person, the person that is clear out here, if you will, pun intended, right? Like we might look at it like, how the fuck could you be so stupid? But at the same time, like you look throughout human history, we are all capable of being sucked into some sort of cult-like situation. And this is kind of primarily that.
Yeah. And it's also, to be fair, totally different when someone's born into one of these things.
Oh, yeah.
You can make a child believe
yes.
anything.
Yes. You're 4 years old when you start thinking about this. Like, the empathy I have for that is insane. And I also want to mention your girlfriend is here as well, and we're going to be doing a podcast tomorrow. And, Jenna, you are David Miscavige's niece, so you were also born into it as well. I'm really looking forward to talking with you about that, but for people seeing on camera 3 there, this is coming tomorrow. So
yeah, we were maybe going to do a
next
three-way
episode.
chat, but figured it might be better to break it up into
two
I
really want to dig into your story separately. I'm glad we did it this way.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, you're basically like born into it. Like, what the hell else are you? That's your compass.
Yeah, but it is wild to think of how many otherwise seemingly intelligent people actually join this shit because they chose to.
Yep.
Like Grant Cardone.
Yeah. Listen, you got to get out there. You got to sell the shit out of that stuff. You understand me?
Hey, you got to get your money right.
That's what Scientology is going to teach you.
Got to get your money right. You're a loser if you're not making at least $400,000. You should be embarrassed to be. You're not even a man.
Oh, that was the best when he said that. Oh my God, he has such a punchable face.
My jet burns more than $400,000 to fuel a week.
Have you ever seen him with Jordan Belfort?
Yes.
Oh my, it's glorious.
I did a reaction video to that. It was one of my favorite things.
Oh my God, it's glorious. It's like Jordan's obviously like a fraud, but he was a great salesman.
Yes.
You can't argue that.
That's
and
right.
He's just like, you don't know sales at all, do you? You don't know shit about any
You're more
of
of a marketing guy. You're more of a marketing guy. He's like, how did you sell your fish? How'd you sell your fish that you already said was going bad? You're like, you want some fish? You know, the irony is that Grant Cardone is considered basically one of the world's #1 sales trainers for the automotive industry. If you talk to anyone who's done car sales in the last 20 years, they have had to watch Grant Cardone videos as part of their sales training, and they will tell you it worked. And I go, then why does he not seem to know anything about sales?
Yeah.
I don't get it. Why did he fail so hard in that interview with Jordan? I don't get it.
It must just be like the charisma of him, because he has massive charisma. I got to give him that, right? It almost like bleeds off into confidence in enough people that then they make a sale or something. And they're like, oh shit, that's because of Grant. I mean, that's a natural human thing. I could get that. But yeah, he seemed to get pretty exposed on that. But he was a guy who joined when he was an adult, right? He was like 30-something.
He was more than 30-something.
40-something.
Yeah. And his twin brother, Gary.
Oh, he joined with him.
Yeah. Well, actually, I think Gary might have gotten Grant in. But it's funny because if you look at them side by side, you would never think that they're twins, but they are identical twins. It's just that one of them doesn't do tons of steroids.
Can we pull them up? Can we pull up Grant Cardone and his
Someone
twins?
sent me a video last week and actually said, do you think Grant Cardone is sick? Does he have cancer? I go, no, that's his brother Gary. That's what Grant would look like without the steroids.
Gary, come over here and put this shit in my ass. Do we got it? Oh, there it is. Oh shit! Yeah, he does look like he's on chemo compared to him.
Well, and look, those are thumbnails, so that's those are the best photos you're gonna get. I mean, that's best.
Well,
case.
that one looks okay. Oh, the one oh look at my secret twin brother.
And if
There you go.
And if you actually just pull up a recent video thumbnail of just Gary.
All right, so just type in Gary Cardone. Let's try that. Take off the N, brother.
Tampa Bay.
Is that him right? Yeah.
You can see.
Yeah. He does look a lot smaller. And look at the one right there, the Grit Daily. See, you can see his facial features. Yeah.
It looks like his older brother. They're
Yeah, it
identical twins.
It does. Crazy. So he may have gotten
They're
Grant.
both Scientologists. I'm pretty sure Gary got Grant in, but you can fact check me on that.
Okay.
Here's what I can tell you. When Grant tells his story of how he got into Scientology, I think he told it on Vlad. He told Vlad.
Yes.
He does not tell the honest story. He also doesn't tell the honest story of how he met his wife. He met his wife shooting a Dianetics commercial. Yeah.
Like an internal commercial?
Yeah. Like a Dianetics infomercial, like an internal thing.
We gotta get that.
So I know.
We gotta get that. I'll bring the ski mask. Let's go.
And so they both, and not only are they both in Scientology, but Grant is like as high level in Scientology as Tom Cruise.
Real? I didn't know that.
When I say high level, it depends on how you define that. Grant Cardone is not friends with David Miscavige the way Tom Cruise is.
Okay.
But they're both OT8. Like they've done the entire bridge that
Whoa.
exists.
That Vlad video that you mentioned, we've played some of that before. I think we had to do it off camera because Vlad has the IP there. But like his body language in that, like when Vlad, because Vlad's like so calm about any topic. He's like, yeah, so you joined Scientology a while back, and you just see Grant lean back and his like arms crossed in his chair. Yep, like licking his little soul patch down there. Yep. No, listen, it's been a huge help to. And he's so uncomfortable talking about it. So I'm like, in his head, maybe that's just because he gets bullied about it by people who aren't Scientologists. That's possible. But like, I'm wondering if in his head there's already like a subconscious, like, yeah, this shit's kind of crazy, but it works for me, so don't ruin my fucking flow. I'm on a roll.
I'll tell you what triggers the nervousness. Scientologists who have done the confidential levels, the OT levels where you learn about Xenu and the volcanoes and the body thetans, you are not allowed to publicly acknowledge that information is true or exists. And yet, you sort of look like a fool if you deny it because so many people know that it's true. That's what triggers the nervousness. If it wasn't for this weird confidentiality, like you will never hear a Scientologist who's done the OT levels acknowledge that Scientologists believe in Xenu or body thetans.
That's so strange.
They're not allowed. Here's how crazy the confidentiality gets. If you have two Scientologists, they're married. They've both done all the OT levels. They are not allowed in the privacy of their own home to discuss the material of the OT levels with each other. And if they do, and it's almost like whoever rats on the other one first will be given the lesser penalty.
Oh my God.
Like it's for real. So you're not even allowed to talk about it with Scientologists. You're not allowed to talk about it with family members or friends, even people who already know the information. So when you have someone like Grant, who's so publicly a Scientologist, and he's publicly an OT8, and he's sitting down with a guy like Vlad, who absolutely starts asking him about Xenu, right? Grant shuts the conversation down right there. He goes, okay, yeah. I'm here about my family. I don't care about all that. I don't care about space aliens.
Yeah.
I care about my family. I care about me. I care about getting my money right. And I'm like, yeah, Grant is the master of controlling a conversation. That is one thing he's excellent at.
I would agree with
and
that.
the point, but that's where the nervousness kicks in. He's not allowed to even be on a platform where Xenu is being mentioned. That's very dicey for a guy like Grant with Scientology.
So they could call him in for like a hardcore audit just for being there.
Well, the next time he goes in, he's going to have to answer up for that. Like, this guy is getting clicks on a video with your name and your image and your likeness.
Did you see this? This is you gotta watch this.
Okay.
This is
What is this?
This is him responding. This was like July 2nd recently, and what he was doing is he was responding to an article because they called him Scientologist, and he was saying, "How dare you call me a Scientologist?" This is the video. It's so cringy.
I did a reaction video to this.
Okay, let's see this real quick. Let's get a live reaction.
Okay.
All right.
That's over at Miami New Times, Alex DeLuca, and the owners of your company, Village Voice Media or something like that, Village Media Group. Want to thank you for the coverage on the listing of our house in Golden Beach for $42 million in Bitcoin. Absolutely true. Thank you for that free coverage. Look, I've never heard of any of you people, but I do want to make you famous. I want to make you famous for religious hate, religious bias, and religious prejudice. And hopefully somebody will hold you guys accountable.
Nope.
If I was Jewish, Muslim, Protestant, Catholic, if I was a gay man. But because you're hacks and you're lazy and you don't know what you're talking about, you use my religion to clickbait. And that's because you're lazy and you're a hack, okay? But what it did show was that you have religious hate and prejudice in your heart.
Oh my God.
Hopefully somebody holds you guys accountable. You owe an apology to me and my family for headlining with this. I am a proud Scientologist. I have practiced Scientology for 25 years. It's been unbelievable and wonderful for my family, for me as a husband, a father, a husband, as a friend, as a business owner of over 1,000 employees. You guys should be ashamed of yourself.
Whoa.
So now hold on. Is he listing his Miami property or his Malibu property?
It says Miami.
That one says
It
Miami.
doesn't really say, but it does seem like it's Miami, isn't it?
Yeah.
So he's selling his Miami place and he's selling his Malibu place.
I don't know.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. That's recent. That's July 2nd,
Who
2024.
told all of these motivational guys that they should always film themselves while walking or driving?
I don't know.
They never seen a table that they liked.
It's because he's on the move.
He's hustling. Get that
I'm
grind.
hustling. I never sleep. I don't sit.
Yeah. So it's like he should be thanking these guys for promoting his listing. He's the one who calls himself a Scientologist. How can it be bigoted to call him a Scientologist? Even if they're clickbaiting, they don't say a single negative word about Scientology in this article. Not a single negative word.
I need the next article to be potentially closeted gay man Scientologist Grant Cardone. Just for the video, we'll get back.
He's not gay. He's deeply closeted.
Oh my god! But yeah, I mean, obviously, like he's got a brain up there, and his brother potentially gets him in, and he joins. He's been in there for 25 years. He's bringing his family into it now too. It sounds like his kids are in it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So the thing is, Scientology, it's not the same thing at the lower levels as it is at the upper levels. Scientology at the lower levels is like pure self-help. It's actually like, it's very much the kind of stuff you'd expect from Grant Cardone or like a Tony Robbins.
That's how they hook
or
you.
Gary Vee. It's all self-help. And it's like the most purest kind of self-help, which is you can accomplish anything because you are like natively godlike in your powers. And you just don't know it yet, and Scientology can help you realize that. It's it's weird because it's kind of a double-edged sword. Where on the one thing you can accomplish anything, but on the other thing, everything that ever happens to you is your fault because you can accomplish anything. Like in some weird spiritual way, you're so powerful that anything that happens in your life is attributable to something you've said or done at some point.
It's always struck me that there is a bastardized element of like manifestation that seems to be at the basis of Scientology, and that sounds exactly like what you're describing right there.
So what year this thing came out called The Secret?
Yep.
When that thing came out, it was so similar to what Scientology teaches that Scientologists would get in trouble for watching it or having anything to do with it. Yeah.
Oh, that's that threatened at home.
Exactly. So what did they call that? Positive. Scientology calls it positive postulating, but there's some phrase. Well, you called it manifesting. That's not exactly the phrase I'm looking for, but I think all these things mean the same thing anyway. Where in Scientology, you're eventually supposed to get to a frame of mind. They call it tone 40 in Scientology, where tone 40 has a few different definitions in Scientology, but it's essentially an idea that the concept that what you're trying to accomplish might not be attainable doesn't even enter your mind as a possibility. If you're even thinking that what you're trying to accomplish might in some way not be possible, then you're not at tone 40. So it's almost like getting rid of all negativity, all counter thought, all counter expectations, anything. And
I could see getting hooked with that.
It can be like a bit addicting.
Yeah.
Because it is self-empowering.
Yes.
And that is the message that Scientology is giving you from the beginning. They're not talking about Xenu. They're not talking about past lives. They're not in the beginning anyway.
Right.
You hang out with Scientologists long enough, the past lives are going to come up, aliens are going to come up, prison planet's going to come up, but it's of course they're going to come. It's going to come up. That's not even the confidential stuff. Like even Scientologists that don't know about Xenu still know about the Fifth Invader Force and the prison planet and the Between Lives implant stations run by the alien psychiatrists on the far side of the moon. Like that is non-confidential information in Scientology, but that's not what they're hitting you with.
No.
They'd rather you didn't hear about that right away.
Yeah, but that's how it's the hook point. They suck you in and then you start having success in your life or you're more confident on stuff. And we know how we think. Confidence, money in the bank account, stuff like that, opportunities that are coming up that have been opened, the doors have been opened by this, those are very easily not only addictive things, but they're things that you will start to make excuses for. Meaning like, oh no, I'm starting to see some crazy shit, but it's getting me this. So therefore, it the good outweighs the bad. And then I guess eventually someone gets far enough up into the OTs that, some people finally go, holy shit, like, all right, this is crazy. I've had enough success. I'm going to be able to sustain on my own. I need to get the fuck out of here.
Absolutely. And because people aren't allowed to talk about those levels with each other, as you go up those levels, if you start to have doubts, you are really made to believe that there's something wrong with you that's causing you to have those doubts, because it's working great for everyone else. Yeah. But you're not allowed to go talk to those people and ask them if that's actually true.
Right.
It's almost
they
like
keep you away.
Yeah, it's almost like every single person is like, oh, I'm the only one having these doubts. I'm the only one who maybe there's something wrong with me. I'll just keep going. I'll just do my next level.
It's like the dark side, the prisoner's dilemma in a way. Like where they can't go talk, that psychological experiment.
I haven't heard of the prisoner's
where
dilemma.
They can't. I hope I'm saying the right one. Am I saying the right one? It's like where they can't, where they have each of the interrogees in a separate room for like a crime, and they're telling them each that they can't talk with each other, and that the other person is telling on them or whatever.
Yeah.
And then
your friends have already ratted you out.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's, if I got that wrong,
it's almost like the reverse prisoner's
like,
dilemma.
Yeah, in a way, that's what I'm saying. Because you guys essentially have to like all walk up to each other like, hey, just another day around here.
That's kind of exactly what happens.
Oh my God.
And there's this other thing where we're just kind of going all over the place here.
This is great.
When you finish a course or an auditing action, you're not allowed to finish it until you write up a success story on how great it was and how it changed your life and how you would want other people to have that. Now, if you're like, I'm not really feeling it. You're like, oh, you're not? We're going to have to go back and see what's wrong with your last level. And that costs you more money.
Hop on the lobotomy machine, my friend.
The beatings will continue until morale improves. But you get to a point where it literally costs you more money to say that thing didn't give you exactly what you hoped it would. So you're trained to lie to yourself.
That's crazy.
Just to save money. And then you get up and you lie to everyone else to get them to do it as well.
Financial incentive on the other end of it.
There really is.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's the wildest part to me. Like how they, even from the beginning, they're like, oh, pay money to do this course. There's something wrong with you. And then they find a way to keep that. It's a gravy train the whole way up. It gets bigger and bigger with how much money you got to spend.
Yeah. Yep. And, there is actually a financial incentive to bring people into Scientology. It's
How
not,
so?
because you get a 10 to 20% commission. People that you bring into Scientology, they're called your select. Like if I bring you into Scientology, you're my selectee.
My pyramid scheme.
Except it's only one level deep, so it's not a pyramid. Oh. So if I get you in,
that's bullshit.
And I get 100 people in, I'm getting commissions on every dollar those people give to Scientology. But if they get people in, I'm not getting an override. They're not in my downline.
I'm going and suing in court on behalf of Scientologists. I don't like this.
There are some people who that is all they do for a living. They
just collect people.
Bring people into Scientology, or they run around and find people who have fallen out with their FSMs. And like if I got you into Scientology, but 5 years later we're not friends anymore, when you don't want me to be your FSM, you can just go pick another FSM. Yeah. And so there are some people who just go around and they collect up Scientologists.
That's a real liberal rule.
They just make the commissions. They just make the commissions.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like Grant Cardone, when he encourages his employees to get into Scientology, or he's making money on that. He's making money on that. Absolutely.
Oh my God, that's just what he needs, more money.
It's one of the reasons I personally do so many videos about Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
I don't care, honestly, on a personal level, I don't care that he's a con man. I care that he's one of the #1 recruiters and financiers of this human trafficking cult.
You call it a human trafficking cult?
It's a human trafficking cult. It absolutely is.
And why do you call it that?
Because they bring in people from other countries with these false promises, and other, I guess, less advantaged countries, whether it's South American or Eastern European or poor Russians, and they bring them here with these false promises. And once they get here, and let's say they join the Sea Organization, mm-hmm. They're being paid $50 a week to work 120 hours a week. So maybe they were promised they were going to come here and they were going to be a highly trained auditor and all this stuff. And then they're just put to work in the hotel rooms, just cleaning the hotel rooms. They're on a $1 billion contract. They're making $50 a week. They overstay their religious visa, the religious worker visa that they got to come here. If they even got a religious worker visa, sometimes they'll just come over on a tourist visa. So they end up here illegally. So if they leave and stay in the U.S., they're going to be deported, and many of them don't want that. But by the time they get to the point where they want to leave, they literally can't afford a plane ticket home. And so the church, or I call it the church sometimes, but Scientology ends up having all the leverage. And this doesn't only happen with foreigners. There are some people who, because there aren't enough Scientologists in the country to staff all the organizations, they'll shuttle them around from state to state.
Oh my God.
And they'll end up convincing someone to like sell all their belongings and go to Albuquerque. Some 20-year-old kid, 20-year-old, sell all their stuff, go to Albuquerque. You're gonna
cook some meth.
Yeah, they're opening the new org. You'll make $1,000 a week. They get there, they're making $5 a week.
Oh my God!
By the time they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. They're like, I'm sorry, we can't help you. Like I can't even pay rent. I'm not allowed to go get a job because you say I have to work here in the org, but I don't make any money here in the org, and I want to go home, but I literally can't even buy a bus ticket.
Yeah,
this story repeats over and over and over, not just in the U.S. but all over the world.
And also, you have it as such a strong cult that we hear all these stories that are true of people who quite literally get imprisoned by Scientology. Where, I mean, we've seen the pictures. Like, they literally have these prisons, and they're like, well, they could technically leave, but they don't because they're so brainwashed by what happened, and they're basically put in these torture chambers.
Yeah. It's funny. In recent years, Scientology has eased up on that kind of stuff a bit, not because they've seen the error of their ways, but because they're like, dude, these people just leave and end up telling the most horrific stories on like Nightline or to Alex Gibney or on YouTube. They're like, I think they've started to realize we're doing more harm to ourselves by continuing to do this. We don't care about the people, but we do care about ourselves. So like we mentioned the Sea Organization, right?
Yeah.
For decades, there was a program within the Sea Org called the Rehabilitation Project Force, or the RPF. This was, I am not exaggerating, the reconditioning and labor camp for Sea Org members.
Yeah, that's some dangerous words right there.
If you're a Sea Org member and you're assigned to the RPF, okay, you are separated from your spouse, you are separated from anyone you work with, and you are just put with the RPFers. This program took 3, sometimes 10 years. You do not see your spouse. You do not have any days off. You're now getting paid $12 a week instead of $50 a week. You only speak when spoken to. You have to run everywhere, not walk. It's 5 hours of hard labor a day and 5 hours of interrogations a day. And this is for I'm explaining this program because it's actually an example of one of the things Scientology quietly got rid of in the last number of years. Now. Yeah, but this program had been around since L. Ron Hubbard's day. This program was around when I was in the Sea Org. This program was around when she was in the Sea Org.
How did this is what I don't understand. How did things like this not get prosecuted?
Because technically it's all protected under the shield of religion. They're considered religious volunteers. It's considered that they are voluntarily subjecting themselves to like, I keep wanting to use like civilian terms, but I'm not sure I forget what the religious word would be. Like we got monks up in the mountains whipping themselves on the back.
Yeah, I understand.
That kind of stuff. Yeah. They're like, no, these people want to do this. It's for their spiritual cleansing and enlightenment. And this is where they go, these people could leave if they wanted to, but you go, how would they leave? Who would they go to? Where would they go? How would they get there? Like in many ways, I mean, we'll both speak from experience on this. In many ways, people stay because it's just easier than having to figure out how to turn your life upside down and start over from scratch.
Yeah, it feels like I always try to picture this, and it's almost like, let's say Clearwater, for example. In Clearwater, there's a lot of Scientologists, and there's a lot of people who aren't in Scientology, and they live right on top of each other.
Oh, yeah.
And yet, let's say I have a house here and a house here, and this house is a Scientologist who wants to leave Scientology, and this house is a normal place. The day he decides to leave Scientology, and he walks to the other lawn just to see okay, maybe I can get some help from my neighbor here, it's almost like he crosses a literal Rubicon. And it's like it's almost like they snatched your soul. And now you're walking out without your soul, and you got to hope it finds its way back home to you. It's very strange, but I can't. I try to put myself in the shoes of that, and I have 2 people here who had to do that. But it seems very, very scary.
It is, and I don't know if you've heard this analogy of, Scientology and the Matrix.
I don't think I have.
So Scientologists, they believe that this is a prison planet. The best way to keep someone in a prison is to make them not realize they're in a prison and to make them maybe a little happy with where they are so they never try to escape. So Scientology believes that everyone on planet Earth was brought here from one of the other planets in the Galactic Federation and was dumped here, okay? They had their spirit memories wiped and were dumped here to believe that they were just bodies that evolved here on Earth and that even humanity evolving the world's major religions is part of what we've been programmed to do to keep us from trying to figure out how to get off this planet. So the fact that, let's just take Christianity, that you believe you live a lifetime and then you either go to heaven or hell. Well, if that's what you believe, you're not trying to figure out how to get off the planet.
Right.
It's not relevant to your worldview. And L. Ron Hubbard basically said all the world's major religions are just fake stories that our alien psychiatrist, alien imprisoners have programmed us as a civilization to evolve over time to keep the population calm and stupid about the real circumstances. And that Scientology is what unplugs you from the Matrix and you realize what the real deal is, and that only Scientology can give you back all your memories of all your previous lives, to erase the amnesia of all your past, and have you regain your native godlike abilities. So in this analogy, you saw the Matrix, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you got Morpheus. L. Ron Hubbard would be Morpheus. Or perhaps now that's David Miscavige. But Neo is Tom Cruise.
Oh, come on. Why do we have to give him the coolest character? He's already cool.
Okay, but Cypher...
Minus the Scientology.
But in this thing, remember, the guys who get unplugged from the Matrix, their life sucks now. Because reality is shit. You're living in this post-apocalyptic world. You're eating slop. But you're not a prisoner. That's how Scientologists see themselves. Okay, so they see that they're so virtuous by working all these hours, giving up all their money, sending their children into the Sea Org. That's the price of unplugging everyone from the Matrix.
Yeah.
Now, you remember in that movie, Cypher was the worst of all of them because he already tasted what it was like to be unplugged from the Matrix, and he asked to be plugged back in. So he screwed everybody. That's how Scientologists view people who leave Scientology. That's why Scientologists see people who've left Scientology as being worse than people who've never been in.
My issue with that, though, and again, like, I wasn't in it, so like I can't really put my mind there, right? But it's not like in the Matrix they literally plugged in and they went to a different world. In a sense, right? Like, just,
but they didn't, and not a physical world.
Not a physical world, exactly. But meaning it was a total. That's my point. It's like a totally different experience. Whereas in Scientology, you just show up to a building that's blue with like a fucking sign, and they're like, "Hey, welcome." You don't go into a different world. You're still getting Domino's pizza ordered.
That's a really good distinction. You're right. They've convinced Scientologists that there's these two completely different worlds, while being in the same world.
Yes.
So what they've convinced themselves is that we've learned our true spiritual nature. That's how we're unplugged. We know who we really are. We know we're not a body. We know we don't live one lifetime. We know about the Galactic Federation. We know about the Fifth Invader Force. Which, by the way, this gets really funny. Fun and funny. So
it already is.
L. Ron Hubbard, and this is in materials most people would not have even who've done OTA be familiar with, because when he first came out with OTA, there was a first version, and people got so pissed off with it that they changed it. Okay, but in the first version, he basically said, the Bible, when it talks about the second coming of Christ, which I make mistakes when I start talking about Christianity because I'm no religious scholar. Okay, so if you guys know anything about this, please jump in. When Christ comes back, it has something to do with Armageddon and basically the world essentially ends, right? But the people who are saved basically take over the. But Christ coming back, that's actually the bad aliens, the Fifth Invader Force coming back to reinvade Earth. But the story's been flipped on its head in the Bible so that all the Christians will welcome the second invasion. Okay, right?
Convenient.
Yes,
very convenient.
And so in this story, L. Ron Hubbard says that's why. Speaking as L. Ron Hubbard, he says, I fulfill the prophecy of the Antichrist. He basically says, I am the Antichrist.
He says that.
In the first version of OT8. But you have to understand.
But he's like, the Antichrist is good.
But what does it mean, though, when someone who doesn't believe in God or Jesus or Christ or the Antichrist, what does it mean when he says, I'm the Antichrist? What he meant was, the Bible is just a work of fiction to trick people into welcoming the second alien invasion. I keep calling it the second alien invasion, but when the fifth invader force comes back.
Okay. Same shit to me.
Right.
I'm just saying.
And so, but this story that I'm telling you, other than being absolutely hilarious, is an example of how Scientologists very much look down on people. They're not someone who's like, all religious people are good. They very much look down on religious folks. They don't really consider themselves to be religious. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in a Jesus or a devil or an angel or a heaven or a hell or anything. They only call themselves a religion for the tax benefits. And I guess there is an argument that could be made, and that if you're talking, because Scientologists do sincerely believe that we are all immortal spiritual beings with native godlike potentials, and only Scientology auditing can get you back to that state. We can argue whether is that religious? Religious people get offended when you say it's religious because they associate religious with God.
Yes.
The truth is, Scientology does not believe in a God, but you could probably make an argument that if they do truly believe that you're an immortal spiritual being and only Scientology auditing can get you back to where you used to be,
I think religion, I think you're right. Like, it usually has to do with God. That's how we think about it. But beyond, on a broader level, it has to do with meaning. And so I can see how this is described as filling the void of meaning.
Yes.
You know? But that's so, wow.
So especially if Scientologists believe that their sort of Matrix story is the one true story, and all of the other religious stories are bullshit and are actually part of the Matrix, Scientologists would scoff at you if you're like, oh, we're not a religion? We're the only religion. We're the only
one.
Real religion.
No other real one.
Yeah. Everything else is bullshit.
That's like, that explains, though, like, because L. Ron Hubbard is such a fascinating guy to me. Obviously, he wrote this pulp fiction in a way. He would write, what was it, like 1 penny a word or something like that?
I've heard that. I don't know if it's true.
Whatever it was, like, he had to write things really fast, like seemingly as if he was on mushrooms the whole time.
Never did a second draft, you hear?
Never did a second draft. Just crazy shit on the page. Wrote tens of thousands of pages. I'll give him that. But, like, he sees himself as, and this seems to be a pattern across pretty much all cults that have ever existed, someone comes along and says, no, I know. I've been told. I've been given all the information. It's come down from on high. I'm the one who has to give it to you. You have to listen to it in the format with which I give it to you. And then people go, seems right, you know, and then they follow it.
That is exactly what he did. Now, you would think, right, since that's the play, that there'd be some story for, well, wait a second. Well, where'd you get your special knowledge?
Don't worry about it.
I swear to God, he does not say where he got the special knowledge. In fact, he doesn't even...
I got it at a tavern in Edison.
He doesn't even have like a golden tablet story like the Mormons do. The closest he gets to explaining anything about this is he says he was Buddha. And I risk saying these words incorrectly because I'm not a religious scholar, but there is the state in Buddhism that you're trying to achieve, I believe, other than nirvana, is like you're called like a bodhi or a bodhi. I always get it wrong. L. Ron Hubbard basically says that as Buddha, I came to raise mankind up to a level, and I thought I had achieved that with bodhi or bodhi. But then after I dropped that body, I was embarrassed to discover that state was only temporary. Okay, we needed to take it to a whole nother level. We needed a permanent state.
I just picture this like in South Park when they had Al Gore be like, member pick. Like that's L. Ron Hubbard, like not Buddha, member pick.
So Scientology's state of clear is supposed to be the permanent version of whatever Bodhi is in Buddhism. So, but you're like, okay, but I don't know if the Buddha ever explained where he got his knowledge from, because again, not a religious scholar. I grew up in a cult, But he literally, in the body of Scientology, never says, this is how I came to obtain all this new knowledge, and you can't. Yeah. In fact, he actually says the opposite. He says, we will not speculate as to how I came to rise above the reactive mind. And I'm thinking, I think that's what we should be speculating about. But for all the smart people that get into Scientology and weren't just born into it, they end up. It's just a fascinating study in how smart people can gradually be brought to a point where they believe all these things. Even if I do think a lot of these smart people who join Scientology, I think there are things that they question along the way. They just convince themselves why those questions don't matter enough right now.
Yes.
And maybe we'll cross that bridge later, but later never comes.
Yes. I think it's something, I've only ever lived in my head, but I think to a certain extent, it's something we are all capable of as human beings, being sucked into some sort of idea that is attached to something good, like we talked about earlier with the incentivization structure, that we go down the rabbit hole, if you will. And there's different things that happen every day in society where we see this. It's just on a whole nother level when it becomes this center like religion in your life, and you're a part of a community that not only encourages you not to talk amongst each other, because that would be very bad, right? To share each other's feelings or whatever, because it's not in their control. But also, they literally teach you that you're separate from the earth and from all these other idiots on this prison planet because they don't know what's really going on in Scientology. That is just like, again, I can't really put myself there, but if I were born into it, of course I'd believe that. I'd be like, yeah, sure. And then at some point, they just slowly boil the frog, like I was saying, and, you tell me, like, Xenu, I might be like, makes sense. Which I really hope, like, when I die, if we get to whatever the afterlife is, if I find out Scientology was right, that's really going to be a bummer. I hope that doesn't happen. That's not going to happen, right?
I don't think you have anything to worry about.
All right, good, good.
It's funny for one of the things two of the things that Scientology pretty much promises Scientology will give you is the ability to come back next lifetime with full and total recall of your previous life and lives.
Recall.
Oh yeah, your perfect memory. You just retain everything because basically what would happen is you skip the between lives implant station, so your memory doesn't get wiped.
So did they tell you what to remember from your previous life?
Tell you what to remember?
Yeah.
What do you mean what to remember?
Like, did they? Maybe that's the wrong way to ask it. Did they say, "Oh, you were a Scientologist in a previous life because you're joining as a kid right now, so it'll come to you"?
They're not allowed to tell you what you should remember. It's just heavily implied. But remember, we talked about the between lives implant station. I might not have gone into detail about it, but it is the thing. Like when you have a near-death experience, like we all do. You see, they say you see the light at the end of the tunnel. Mm-hmm. Well, Scientologists believe the light at the end of the tunnel is the implant station. Don't go towards the light. That's where you get your memory wiped by the alien psychiatrist imprisoners. Right. What is the name of the people that guard a prison? I keep saying imprisoners or captors. I don't know what the right
guards.
Prison guards?
Yeah, I guess prison
so, right?
guards, yeah.
Alien psychiatrist prison guards that are manning the implant station. So they believe that with enough Scientology, when you drop your body this lifetime, you'll be able to bypass the implant station and just pick up a new body. So like today you're you, tomorrow you're still you, but in a new baby body. Being like, how do I use these arms and legs and why do I keep shitting myself? But you'll still remember everything.
Even though they wipe you?
No, you skip the implant station. With enough Scientology. That's what they believe.
Oh, but how do they define enough?
They don't. They just convince you that with enough Scientology, you get yourself in good enough shape spiritually and mentally, you can skip the implant station the next time you drop your body.
It's like chasing the magic dragon.
Yeah.
Come on.
So Scientologists end up to a point where they're like, oh no, if I don't either do enough Scientology or if I don't be a good boy or a good girl and I get kicked out of Scientology, God forbid, I'm going to be doomed to an eternity of amnesia because I'll never get enough Scientology to be able to skip the implant station. I'll just continue to be a prisoner on this planet over and over again for the rest of eternity. That's the promise that Scientology gives you. So considering that, there's two big things that they promise. That you'll be able to come back next lifetime with full memory of everything that happened this lifetime. And also that you'll get to a point where you can causatively and at will and with full perception, exteriorize from your body. Just
exteriorize.
Have an out-of-body experience. But causatively. Not like, oh, I just was in a car accident and I was looking down upon myself. No, like you could be sitting here and you just leave your body with full perception. So instead of here, I'm here, but my body's here, but I'm here. So I'll be looking at you from over here, but my body's here. Like, honestly, just exteriorization. Fully, stably exterior, at will, and with full perception is something Scientology promises it will eventually give you. No Scientologist has ever accomplished either of these two things.
I was gonna ask you, did you have it happen? I mean, come on.
Not even close. You know how many times I trying to like pop myself out of my head? I'm close. I can feel it. I can feel the vibration. As a young little Scientology staff member, one of my biggest ruins, if you will, is, damn it, I've never been exterior. But there are Scientologists who'll tell you that they've gone exterior. And you're like, if L. Ron Hubbard could go exterior, then why did he have to infiltrate all those government buildings? Why couldn't he just pop through the files and read the papers with his spirit eyes?
That's it. That's it. See, there's an explanation there.
And L. Ron Hubbard never came back.
Yeah.
If Scientology was true, and if L. Ron Hubbard wanted everyone on planet Earth to get into Scientology, all he had to do was come back.
That's it.
And it's the one thing every Scientologist is told they will be able to do. That's all he had to do. But instead, they say he went off to Target 2. He went off to another planet.
Oh, they say where he went.
Target 2. They didn't name the planet.
Okay.
Just Target 2. He didn't want us to know where he was. Don't forward the mail. Their explanation for why L. Ron Hubbard didn't come back is he's off on Target 2, getting Scientology rolling on another planet while we wrap up business on this planet and get at least half the people in the world into Scientology. Where I'm going with all this is, it's remarkable that the two biggest things Scientology promises you will have, or you will get or be able to do, should be easily demonstratable if it was real. Mm-hmm. No one's ever done it, and Scientologists are still able to continue to be convinced that this is why they need to stay in Scientology. What could possibly be more important than being able to come back next lifetime without having your memory wiped? What could possibly be more important? What could possibly be more important than actualizing your full true self independent of your body? Mm. Like the ultimate spiritual experience, the ultimate spiritual realization. And yet no one's ever done it. No one's ever done it. I have never spoken to a Scientologist who actually convinced me that they even really believed they had gone exterior. Some of them would be like, oh yeah, I went exterior once. I'll be like, really? Tell me about it. And it's very clear.
I was sitting here and then I was over there.
It's very clear, very quick that they're like, well, I sort of felt this way and I felt that way. I'm like, it's not a feeling. You either did it or you didn't. How many fingers am I holding up behind my back? If you can't tell me, then you did not achieve this ability.
Oh my God. Did you ever like talk to your mom about some of these concepts while you were growing up? Like,
not
Mom,
when I was
I'm trying to go exterior. What the fuck?
No, not when I was
working.
growing up, but after we both were out of Scientology, we tried.
After you left.
But she still believes in Scientology, and so she does not like having these kind of conversations.
Wait,
really.
your mom's out of Scientology, but she still believes in it.
Yeah, so she
How
doesn't
does
like
that
David
work?
Miscavige. She doesn't like the organization and financially ruining its members and all this kind of stuff. But she still believes in L. Ron Hubbard and the technology of Scientology. Yeah.
So like Xenu and all that?
Yeah, well, she did the OT levels, and she goes, you don't have to believe it. You just have to audit it, and the e-meter tells you that it's true. And I'm kind of like, she's tried to kind of convince me that she didn't really believe it or doesn't really believe it, or you don't have to really believe it. And I'm like, I don't know. It kind of sounds like you don't believe what L. Ron Hubbard said. I don't know. It's weird. A lot of people who've done the OT levels have said to me something along the lines of, you don't really have to believe it. You just have to do it. I'm like, I don't know. Seems like you should believe it.
How deep did she get in OT?
OT 5.
Okay, so she didn't get to Xenu level.
Xenu's OT 3.
He's OT 3. Okay,
Yeah.
so she did get to that.
Yeah.
Do you have a good relationship with your mom today?
It's not excellent. Yeah.
But it's a relationship.
We're in touch.
Okay. That's a new one. Like, you don't really, at least I haven't really from the outside heard of that much, where like people leave but they still believe in some of the concepts. I've really only heard of the ones, and I'm probably naive on this, but I've only heard of the ones where people leave and they're like, oh my God, what the fuck happened to me in there?
So actually, when you were talking to Tony, he mentioned the independent Scientology movement. And what that is people who've left Scientology, the Church of Scientology, but still believe in Scientology, and they practice Scientology outside of the Church of Scientology. So my mom's one of those guys.
So is that like an official?
It's not an official organization.
It's not official at all.
Right. And yeah, those are people who are more like, I guess they might call themselves originalists. Because, they're
Protestants to the Catholics, if you will.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They basically say anything that happened in Scientology after L. Ron Hubbard died is bullshit and garbage, and throw that away, and we're going to stick with the stuff that was the way it was at the point L. Ron Hubbard died, and that was the good stuff.
Interesting.
And yet none of these people have achieved exteriorization. No one's ever come back no one's ever come back and been able to convincingly discuss their past life experiences in a way that was like, oh, this is for real?
Yeah.
So, yeah. One of the things that happens with people who are born into Scientology, and it's hard for a parent to accept that they've actually done anything harmful to their child by bringing them into Scientology.
Yeah.
It really is. And that has been a source of conflict between my mom and I. Not that I'm so dedicated to like shoving her face in the fact that bad things were done, but that she gets so defensive about the fact that anything bad ever was done at all. Or the one I like the best is, you guys wanted to do it. It's like, no, 12-year-olds want to play baseball and play football. Yeah. We basically just decided that if we had to do this thing, we might as well, get good at it.
That's I can't imagine that. That's a really tough place to be, because obviously, like, there's a part of her, even if she still believes maybe in some of the concepts or whatever, it seems to me like there is a subconscious part of her that's like, oh shit,
yeah,
this is bad. But like, she obviously loves her kids and everything, and she doesn't want their lives to be more maybe ruined by this than it already was. And so maybe like the trauma of like reliving that and realizing like, oh shit, I was the bridge to this, to get them into this. That's probably really hard for her to even acknowledge, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, it seems to be that way. And what makes the conversation a little more complex is like, I've in many ways turned out rather well, and I'm a pretty successful guy. I don't seem like I'm some horribly damaged person, and so it's kind of like it's easy for my mom to see the things that have gone well for me in life and go, well, that's because I got you into Scientology. So what do you have to complain about? And you go, well, how do I argue with that, considering it's the only path I traveled?
Yes.
It's a complicated thing for parents of kids who are in Scientology as kids to grapple with. I mean, there's a lot of people in my shoes who have difficult relationships with their parents, specifically because of the subject of Scientology.
I can imagine, for sure. But when we were going off into some things about Scientology itself and whatever, but within your story, the last part we were at was when you were like 15 to 18, something like that, working as running the course room in the Philly Scientology location.
Yeah.
So what came after that?
So when I was just before I turned 18, I was getting pretty disillusioned, not with Scientology itself, but with life at the Philadelphia org. It was just terrible. The people there, I was not having fun at all. And it got to the point where it was like, I'd just rather do anything other than this. So me and my brother moved to Hollywood, and I mentioned those freeloader debts earlier, right? So,
I think so,
where if you work for Scientology and you're on one of the contracts and you don't fulfill the contract, you owe them money for everything you did in Scientology. So I was 17 years old. I was given a bill for $100,000.
$100,000 of all the hours I worked for you.
Exactly.
Yeah, you owe us for that.
Exactly.
That's fucking nuts.
And so, of course, I never had any intention of paying that because it was just unrealistic.
Of course.
But mentally, I still consider myself a Scientologist. So for a couple years, we moved out to Hollywood and just kind of lived a fun life for a couple years.
Outside
No
the
association with Scientology whatsoever. And then eventually it just got to a point where I was like, is this sustainable? Like, am I really going to, because I still consider myself a Scientologist. I was like, I just didn't see where the path was going. I didn't see the path back. I wasn't able to pay the freeloader debt.
What were you doing for work?
Some background work on some TVs and movies and stuff like that. Signed up with Central Casting, and it was had a great time. It was fantastic.
Yeah. So you're making money for yourself at least.
I was totally supporting myself. But eventually, I was like, okay, I actually have to go back to Philadelphia and finish my contract. And so that's in order for me not to have this freeloader debt, I actually have to go back to Philadelphia and finish like the last 2 years I have on my contract.
Yeah, but were they like knocking on your door trying to come find you? Like, hey, you owe us this money?
No, but I still considered myself a Scientologist.
Wow.
And
Is that strong?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I've sort of been in denial that this thing's ever going to get resolved in any way. And I guess I have to go back and finish those 2 years. So I did. I finished those 2 years, went back to Philadelphia. At that point, somewhere in there, my mom finally came back from Clearwater, having finished her training, because she actually did the auditor training. And then when my staff contract was up, some kids that I had grown up with in the Philly org, but had then gone off and joined the Sea Org and become some high-level Sea Org executives, they came back to town for a wedding of one of their family members, and sort of was like, they sort of got their hooks into me and was like, hey, remember how badly you used to want to join the Sea Org? I was like, yeah. And they're like, we'll get you replaced and we'll bring you to LA. You can join the Sea Org right now. And within like 2 weeks, I was in LA in the Sea Org. And I was 22 years old at that point. And and so I was working there on L. Ron Hubbard Way in Hollywood, Sunset Boulevard, and I think Vermont is like, yeah. And so then I was in the Sea Org for 4 years, and that was the next chapter of the story.
4 years in the Sea Org.
4 years in the Sea Org.
What does that look like?
It was actually much easier than being in Philadelphia because all you have to do is focus on your job. So for me, comparing my 4 years in the Sea Org to all the time I spent at the Philly org, it was actually it was easier to just be there and focus. But again, it eventually got to the point where it was equally as unfulfilling. Like there's this culture in Scientology organizations where they're constantly on witch hunts, trying to find who they can blame for the fact that there aren't enough people joining Scientology and going up the levels.
I wonder why.
People are always just fighting and finger pointing and fault finding, and eventually I was like, I don't need, like, you guys need me more than I need you. I can literally go and do whatever I want. Okay, now Sea Org members can only marry other Sea Org members. And
Oh, yeah, that's right.
right. So I met, I call her my wife because we're not divorced yet, but we're going to be divorced soon. While I was in the Sea Org, I met my wife, Heather, and she had been in the Sea Org for like 14 years.
Whoa.
She was also born and raised in Scientology.
Whoa.
And
How young was she when she got in?
Well, she was born in.
Yeah, but how young was she when she got into the Sea Org?
I think 16.
Wow.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
So she was a little older than you.
She is older than me.
Right.
She is 7 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah. And because you're also not allowed to have children in the Sea Org, if you get pregnant, you have to either leave or get an abortion, and they very much pressure you to try to convince you to get an abortion. But we both knew that we didn't want to be there anymore, and we knew that the easiest way to get out was to get pregnant. So that's what we did.
Whoa.
And that was in 2006, and that was sort of our easy way out of the Sea Org, because I mean they don't want anyone walking around pregnant.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. I think I was talking with Tony about this. It's crazy to me that like a religion that wants to grow and continue the organization, whatever, who happily takes on families with kids coming in who are born into it, doesn't want their own members who are marrying each other by rule.
Yeah.
To have more. I mean, I guess I'm glad they're not bringing more kids into it, but that seemed like really ass backwards logic to me. It's
true. One of the easiest ways to understand that aspect of it would be like the Catholic clergy, where like Catholics have lots of kids, but the clergy don't. The clergy, like they have like abstinence. Like they're not supposed to even.
Yeah, I
have
mean, like
relations,
half
right?
of them are gay, though.
I know.
You know?
But that's an example where
Just saying.
they want their public members to have kids.
Yeah.
But the people who've dedicated their lives to work for the church, they don't want those people having kids.
It makes sense.
Now, the funny thing about Scientology is it's so expensive to do Scientology. The Scientologists don't have a lot of kids. They just actually don't.
Oh, that's right.
Big families are not a thing in Scientology. It's totally different than like Mormonism or even Catholic families. Like, you hear about 10, 11, 12 kids. Scientology, it's not like that.
How expensive was it a year for you when you were in the Sea Org?
Oh, no, in the Sea Org, you don't pay for anything.
You don't pay anything. Before that, when you're
a staff member, you don't pay for anything.
still nothing.
Right.
So it's only the people who are members that don't necessarily work for it.
Correct.
Okay. So you
And
didn't
that's-
experience that as much.
I did not experience that at all.
Yeah.
And it's not an annual fee. It's a pay to play thing.
But when you were a kid, like your mom had to experience that paying for you, right?
She was on staff.
Oh, so her kids shouldn't have to pay for
Oh,
anything.
we
for her
might have done the
kids.
kids courses that are like $100.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
you really didn't get that, but a lot of people within Scientology or members do, and they pay.
Yeah.
Man, I think Leah Remini was like paying hundreds of thousands of dollars at one point.
I mean, Leah over her lifetime as a public Scientologist probably gave over $5 million, somewhere in that vicinity.
Could she go get that back?
No,
Oh my god.
no.
Yeah, that part's wild to me. So you get pregnant
Yeah.
4 years in. What
Yeah.
I mean, did you go like? Is there like a main office you go to and say, "I'd like to report a pregnancy"? Like, how does it go down?
Literally, every Scientology organization has its one person who's like over the ethics, personnel matters, ethics matters, called the Director of Inspections and Reports, or the Dorey. Went to the Dorey after morning muster, and I said, Heather's pregnant, and we're not getting an abortion.
Just like that.
Yep.
And what'd they say?
They said, okay, I'll put you on the leaving the Sea Org routing form.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Now, is that good? Does that affect backlash within the organization though? Because like now you've dropped out of the Sea Org. Like, are you?
You get a freeloader bill. You get a new
letter?
you get a new freeloader bill.
Oh, another one.
Yeah.
How big's this one?
I'd only been in for 4 years, and it was basically between the two of us at that point, it was about $100,000, but because she'd been in for so long, but we negotiated it down to $40,000.
Oh, how does that work? A little negotiation with Scientology?
Yeah, you know.
You and Miscavige in the back
Like,
room.
hey, this
saying,
week you buy now, we'll give you a 50% credit. You know. They'd be like, hey, if we review this and we knock this off and we give you a credit for this, can you pay this week before Thursday?
Oh my god. It's like a Scientology timeshare. So you guys paid like a $40,000 bill,
Yeah.
like up front.
Yeah, I had before I joined the Sea Org, I had bought a house up in North Philly in Olney, and because so many of the Philadelphia staff members were living there, I actually was allowed to keep that house the whole time I was in the Sea Org. So by the time I left 4 years later, I had a bunch of equity in that house, but I took out a line of credit and paid the $40,000.
You pay that in cash or check?
Yeah, cash, pennies.
Oh my god. You just walk in with a bag, count it, fuckers. So you leave the Sea Org, and now what happens?
Okay, so
And how old are you? 26 now? Something like that?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. We are still Scientologists at this point. And we're just ex-Sea Org members, but still Scientologists.
You're not questioning anything at this point, really,
No.
you'd say?
So this is 2006. Life goes on pretty much as normal until 2009, when the Tampa Bay Times starts publishing these interviews of these high-level executives who had all not just left the Sea Org, but actually left Scientology. And these were executives who worked directly with David Miscavige, and many of them had also worked directly with L. Ron Hubbard. And this is where things start to get interesting, because I go, we said earlier, how could anything be more important than the promise of what Scientology says it's going to give you? It's like, even if David Miscavige is beating the shit out of everybody and everyone's on rice and beans and everyone's sleeping on the floor under their desks, small price to pay for unplugging planet Earth from the Matrix. You go, if you got a taste of what it was actually like to be unplugged from the Matrix, how are you bitching about David Miscavige roughing some people up? Maybe the math isn't working out on this. Maybe these people know something I don't know. So that's when I started following all of that very, very closely, and then started secretly getting in touch with some of those people. Because these were people who were famous in Scientology.
Yeah.
Marty Rathbun, Mike Rinder, Tom DeVocht, Debbie Cook. These people were famous in Scientology.
So was there obviously you're reading some of this because you do live in the real world. You're a Scientologist, but you can get access to it. Like, and it's giving you a lot of hesitation. But do you remember like any one moment where you were like, the Rubicon's crossed, like, holy shit, at that point?
I never had some sort of a crisis or existential crisis or, oh my God, what does this mean for me? Because for me, I just felt like I'd always been kind of singularly focused on just figuring out how to do my job the best way I could, whether I had buy-in or didn't buy in. It was almost like as a child, I was put on this path and I followed this path and I tried to get as good as what I had to do as possible. And I did believe in a lot of the big aspects of science, or the big pieces of the Scientology story, like the prison planet and full operating Thein. And I did believe in those things, but I didn't. It's almost like I had to convince myself. There were so many times that I had to convince myself why I should still be there and keep doing this thing, even though I really didn't want to. I would have to remind myself, oh yeah, Prison Planet. Oh, that's why we're here. Okay.
Fuck.
I forgot. I forgot. But I had so many times over the years had to convince myself to keep going. And there were certain pieces of the puzzle that if I was like, oh yeah, that's why. But when I finally found out from one of these executives in particular named Dan Kuhn, who worked personally with L. Ron Hubbard, and his job in the Sea Org was to go through everything L. Ron Hubbard had left behind and figure out what needed to be released, what stuff he left behind that had not yet been released, and how to release it.
Sorry to hear that. Sounds like an awful job.
Yeah. Out of everyone in Scientology, he's someone I knew would know if there were these upper unreleased OT levels.
Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.